Hi there, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Golden, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webcast on Rural Youth Tech Trends. Today we'll be going over the results of the biennial survey from FRS, the Foundation for Rural Service, that we've done on Rural Youth Tech Trends. So with us today, we also have two very exciting guests. We have Noah Oshner of Kansas and Kennedy Buckingham of Iowa. And we'll be having them join us a little bit later on to share some insight into their own tech trends. But also I'd like to remind folks that if you have any questions throughout any of this webcast, that please feel free to ask them in the Q&A box you'll see in the corner of your screen. Also, we'll have the entire survey available for you at frs.org after the webcast. So feel free to check that out. We'll have much more detailed answers to any of the questions you might have available for you in that survey or online at frs.org. So thank you again for joining us today. So again, my name is Jessica Golden. I'm with the Foundation for Rural Service. FRS is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are the foundation arm of NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association. And our mission at FRS is that we seek to sustain and enhance the quality of life in America by advancing an understanding of rural issues. And key to this mission is connectivity. Because as we all know, in this day and age, connectivity is key to any community having a chance at survival, because connectivity, usually based in telecommunications services, is now key to food, to our education, our healthcare, our economic development, and in some cases, even our happiness. So connectivity is a key ingredient in our mission at FRS. But why do we say America and not just rural America when we're talking about quality of life? Well, we believe that the success of our nation is also dependent upon communications access to everyone, no matter where they are, affordable quality communication services. So that's key to our mission and vision at FRS, which is why we do this survey every other year on the telecommunications needs of our rural youth. So FRS is obviously a rural foundation who focuses on the future of our rural communities and our rural students. But that also means that we focus on a lot of the NTCA member communities. NTCA members are small rural telecommunications companies in 46 different states across the country. And as you can see from this map on your screen, we take up a chunk of the nation's land mass. But what does FRS do to help advance our mission? Well, key to what we do each day is that we fight to keep rural America at the table. And we do that through our programs like our scholarships, which invest in the next generation of our rural leaders, our grants investing in our nation's rural communities. We also have a number of educational materials available for you at our e-store at frs.org on everything from economic development to smart agriculture. In addition, every year FRS does a youth tour in which we invite over 100 students from across the nation to Washington, D.C. to learn about rural telecommunications. We also have conversations on the various challenges facing our rural communities, such as the opioid epidemic, access to education, economic opportunities. And the two students who are joining us today, Noah and Kennedy, were both on our youth tour this year. We were very lucky to have them, and they're going to be sharing some insight from that tour as well as in their own telecom later on. But our youth tour, again, is an incredible opportunity for students to come to DC and to also begin to visualize themselves as a leader within their communities and to know that they have a voice representing rural America in Washington, DC. So why do we do this survey? Well, a huge piece of being able to address the concerns of loss of rural youth is figuring out what our rural youth really want and to better understand them and to respect what their interests are and what their concerns are in the world. And so a lot of what the Rural Youth Survey does is it helps us predict trends, and it helps us provide a future for our youth and to provide a community that they can come back to and see themselves having a role in potentially down the line. So for the Youth Survey, who did we ask? Well, the Youth Survey surveyed over 1,700 youth from across rural America, aged 14 to 22. Many of them had been on our youth tour before. Many of them had applied to our scholarship program, and many were just simply rural residents across the country. 80%, though, were between 14 and 19, so on the younger end. 60% were female and 40% were male. But what did we find? Well, on cell phone usage, we found that 96% of survey respondents have a cell phone. That's up a few percentages from 2 years ago, so that's just an increasing trend, not surprisingly. 3 out of 4, though, receive a service as part of a family package plan for their cell phone. And as you'll see throughout the survey when you do receive it, is that we have graphs that depict in further detail what these breakdowns are of each of the respondents from the survey. 9 in 10 of the respondents use their cell phones to take pictures, also not surprising. 90% use their cell phones for social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. More than 3 out of 4 of them use it to send and receive email, make voice calls, and to surf the web. And again, this is the breakdown. As you can see, text messaging obviously dominates the usage of cell phones in rural youth. Most respondents responded that they were generally satisfied with the quality of their cell phone service. 4 out of 10 with a cell phone only use the landline telephone to place calls when they are at home. Now, that can be for a number of reasons. It could be maybe their cell phone service does not work when they are at home, or maybe they're just trying to save on their data plan, or maybe they've received a phone call from a family member who doesn't have a cell phone, and landline just becomes easier. 3 out of 4 receive their cell phone service from a national carrier. 17% know that they receive service from a local telecommunications company. 1 out of 4 pay between $31 and $50 monthly for their cell phone service, and slightly fewer pay more than $100 monthly. However, as you'll notice from this chart, 25% didn't know the monthly cost of their cell phone service. And that might be in part because 3 out of 4 indicated that their parents or guardian alone pay for their cell phone service. 1 in 4, however, do pay for their own service, but it's either by themselves or together with their parents. What about the internet connection? Well, 95% have an internet connection in their home. 2 out of 10, under 2 out of 10 knew that they had a fiber connection in their home. So there's still a lot of education on what does having a fiber connection mean? What does that mean for my own house and my own connectivity? Nearly 2/3 are online for more than 3 hours a day. However, that also it's almost 20% is much higher than that. And it's also a good question to say, how are students seeing as being online? Are they considering waking up and checking their Instagram account or their email as being online, or are they just associating it with being on a laptop or a tablet? So that's just something to keep in mind when we're talking about our tech trends. Most of the time is spent on social media, which is often used more via a cell phone than it is via a laptop, though other popular online activities also include homework, research, and chat functions. And as you can see, our social media has increased significantly over the past few years, especially among our youth, and that's rural, but that's also across the nation. Social media has only increased in its usage and who's online using social media. 1 in 3 of our rural youth respondents receive internet access from their local telephone company. 1 in 4, though, do not know who their local ISP is. And as you can see, we have the breakdown there also included in the survey. More than 1 in 3 receive their video service from a satellite provider, such as DirecTV or Dish, followed by the local telephone company or the local cable company. 9 in 10 stream video content, and this could mean Netflix, this could mean Hulu or YouTube. Half of those who stream more than 5 hours a week. And again, this is also calling into question whether or not they're using a streaming service on their phone and if they're considering that streaming video. On the virtual reality front, which is an interesting field that's been developed but is still kind of stagnant, I think, in the selling sense, more than 1 in 3 have used a virtual reality system, though 40% have never used it, they would like to. On a more serious front, cyberbullying. Half of the students who were polled are aware of a cyberbullying incident happening to a friend or an acquaintance. And 1 in 4 have been personally involved in a cyberbullying incident. So it's definitely a trend that has increased, especially with the increase in social media and access to these services. So it's something I think to keep in mind, especially on the educational front. We also, for the first time ever, asked our student respondents what they were planning on doing after next, whether they're graduating from high school or college, what are their plans? And nearly 2 in 3 said that they would consider living in a rural area soon after graduation. 28% were not sure. So that's a fairly high percentage. So what are the factors that students are considering in making this decision? Well, it looked like job availability and proximity of friends were very big factors in deciding where students eventually live. So what are the conclusions that this survey came up with? Well, it found that a significant chunk of the survey respondents don't know how much their cell phone service costs. It also begs the question from that conclusion, what does that mean for a rural telco when you're looking at potentially charging for cell phone bills or engaging students on their bills? It requires a little bit of education potentially down the line for future customers. Participating in social media is by far the most popular online activity. So how are we as an industry using social media to engage our consumers and our rural youth in our communities? Are we utilizing the proper functions and platforms that our students are using? And are we using that in a way that is productive? Young people also need more convincing about the dangers of texting while driving. A chunk of the survey also did cover how students are addressing texting while driving. Many of them said, I understand I've received the PSAs on texting while driving, but they aren't necessarily paying attention to it. And that's tough to talk about, especially in a rural area if you're driving longer distances. But it's definitely something to keep in mind from an educational standpoint on how we address texting while driving, because it's only going to get worse down the line. So how do we continue to educate not only our students, but all consumers on the dangers of texting while driving? Also, we found that interest in virtual reality is widespread. So is that a platform that we can use to continue to engage consumers? And also, lastly, cyberbullying is a significant concern for young people, and I don't think they always know how to address it. It might be something that gets shoved under the rug because it is very personal. Social media becomes very personal. It can make one feel a bit vulnerable putting their feelings out there. So cyberbullying is something that I think as parents, as students, as consumers, as leaders in the industry, it's something that definitely should be kept in mind and something that we think about talking about additionally moving forward in the telecommunications industry. So with that, that was my very brief overview of the Rural Telecommunications Survey. You can find the entire survey again at frs.org after this webcast. We're very excited to share it with you. It's beautifully done by the communications team that we've worked with at NTCA. So I highly suggest that you take a look at the entire survey. There's a lot more information in there, and feel free to share it far and wide. We're very proud of it. So with that, I would next like to introduce our 2 guests. We have Noah Oshner of Kansas and Kennedy Buckingham of Iowa. And Noah and Kennedy, I'd like to welcome you to joining our webcast today. You guys were both 2 wonderful participants on our youth tour. And today what we're going to do, just to start off, is have Noah answer the question first and then go to Kennedy. But if one of you guys feels more comfortable answering the question first, please feel free to jump in. So with that, I would like to ask you first just to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you're from, Noah.
Which is way out on the western side of Kansas in Greeley County. I live in the least populated county in the entire state of Kansas with just right around 2,000 people. I'm coming to you from Greeley County High School in Tribune, a 1A Division II high school in Kansas. I was happy to represent Pioneer Communications this summer in Washington, D.C. They are one of the 3 internet providers we are lucky to have here in Greeley County. And I'm very thankful to be here today and to be able to talk to you all about rural telecommunications and how it affects our lives here in rural western Kansas and across the entire state of Kansas in general. And just happy to be here today.
I'm Kennedy
Thanks, Noah.
Buckingham
How about you, Kennedy?
from Central Decatur. We're located in Leon, Iowa, in the county of Decatur. Decatur County is the poorest county in the state. um, there's not really much to talk about. We're 15 minutes from Missouri, and there's nothing a lot to do, but um, we are represented by the GRM, Grand River Mutual Telecommunications. They are the only one that we have in our county. They represent us and the following counties like next to us, and I was lucky enough to find the application to go on the youth tour and be introduced to all these people who are in counties like mine. So it was a great experience.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Noah and Kenny. We're so excited that you guys are here. Can you each just tell us, you both went on the youth tour, obviously. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what you learned,
Yeah, I
what
had a
your favorite part
great
of the
time on
tour
the youth tour.
was?
Again, thank you to Pioneer Communications and Ulysses for sponsoring me to go on that. What I learned there is the great effect that the legislative process has in providing rural internet to counties like mine, where there's only 2,000 people, and without uh, corporations and people that are like at FRS and NPCA, we wouldn't be able to have the access to internet that we have. And being able to learn about how much effect the FCC and the federal government has in making sure that I'm able to have internet access all the way out here in rural western Kansas where there's only 2,000 people, and being able to have the same access and speeds as people in cities like Wichita and the KC metro area have with bigger providers and bigger players in the system like AT&T. And also learning that companies like Pioneer and in my town, Wheatland Broadband, and up north of us, Nextech, learning that those companies put in a lot of time and effort and the steps they go through to make sure we have internet access here in rural America was just amazing to learn about, and how those companies are truly customer focused and truly focused on providing internet, unlike major corporations like AT&T and Verizon, which aren't truly have a focus on rural America and really don't have any wish or desire to enter into those areas.
Um,
Thanks. How
well,
about you,
thanks again to
Kennedy?
GRM for sponsoring me and my classmate Nick. Um, we weren't out there long enough to learn everything out in DC, but we did learn a lot about telecommunications. And one thing that really sticks out was that how hard these little companies like GRM or Pioneer that Noah goes through, like how much it takes for them to connect us to the outside world. Because without them, we would kind of be just left out, out here in rural America. But it was just great to see what effort they put into it and what it really takes, because people do care about us, and that's good to know, because it's just hard. Yeah.
I appreciate you guys both saying that. We were so happy to have you guys both in Washington, D.C. It's a whirlwind trip. I know you had a lot thrown at you, but you both participated so much in the conversations we had. And we also at FRS learn about you in your backgrounds, because every rural community is different and suffers from and different problems, but also has great pieces to it. Every rural community has some great stories to tell, and that's what we try to do at FRS, is to help you tell your community's story. So thank you guys for both participating in that and providing the leadership from your rural areas. So with that, a quick question that I have for you guys both is relating back to the survey. So we talked a lot about cell phones and cell phone usages. I know students these days are attached to their phones. I know I am. We get addicted to them, if some would say. So how old were you when you each got your first cell phone, and was
I
that average
was
for your friend group?
in seventh grade when I got my first phone, and it wasn't anything exciting. I know now we're blessed to have these nice iPhones that connect us to everything, but I actually started out with like a slide flip phone, which was pretty average for everyone here in Greeley County. It was about the seventh grade age is when people here in my time when people were getting phones, but I'm noticing even now when I have to go down into the junior high, when I'm going down to the elementary to do presentations, I'm seeing fifth graders with iPhones, and that's probably the craziest thing ever to me. But for me to get a phone in seventh grade was average in 2012 or 13. But I noticed that trend's changing now, where kids are getting iPhones and smartphones at an earlier age, and that's increasingly crazy for me to watch.
Hmm.
I received my
And how about you,
first phone on
Kennedy?
my 12th birthday. All it really did was call my parents, and that's it. um, I used it for contacting them when I had sports practice. Hey, I'm done. Come pick me up. But it was really normal for kids my age to have a phone. I was actually late. I think everybody had a phone within the fifth grade, and I was very down on the technology scale. I had a flip phone, and all my friends had the smartphone. So I was just astonishing, like why they thought they needed a phone like that. Because
Wow.
yep, I, it's just crazy how much technology has changed. Like Noah said, you can go down and you see fourth graders with iPhones, and
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I think the iPhone was released in 2007, and we had the BlackBerry before that, but it definitely changed how we see technology and communications and connecting. And it's not just texting anymore necessarily. It's how we use our GPS and how we connect with people. It's pretty powerful. So it's interesting that you both say that the trends are trending younger, because I've definitely seen that as I've traveled across the nation as well. You see really young kids with smartphones, or you see babies with tablets, 3-year-olds who are able to use tablets like it's nothing. It's pretty crazy. So, well, thank you guys for sharing that. So, my next question would be, so you both obviously have smartphones. What would you say are the top 3 things that you use your cell phones for? And actually, before you respond, I'm going to remind folks that anyone who's listening, and feel free to ask questions. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation, but you just enter them in the little question and answer box that you have below. But sorry, I'm going to pass the floor to you guys again, and just know if you want to get
The
started
top
on
three things I
what
use my
top 3 things you
cell
use your
phone
cell phone
for,
for.
surprisingly, using it to make phone calls is probably the bottom of the list. I hardly make calls on my cell phone ever. It's more of the top number one app that I use, and specifically a lot of kids in my high school use, is we're all using Snapchat to communicate. That's a huge chunk. Actually, on your iPhone, there's a way you can view what's using battery usage, and that is what eats up most of my battery during the day. I use it mostly for communicating and social networking, Twitter, Snapchat, and Facebook, and email. I can respond to emails directly from my phone. I work on a governor's campaign here in Kansas, and that is how I'm able to respond to emails when I don't have access to my computer anywhere in the state. And it's pretty nice, but mostly social networking and texting people. I hardly actually make phone calls with my phone anymore.
That's incredible. It's amazing how
I
things have
am
changed. And how about
about
you,
the same
Kennedy?
actually. I am constantly on Snapchat. That's how our school connects with each other. We're constantly Snapchatting each other. I'm always on Facebook, but that's because our FBLA runs their pages through there, and since me being the president, I have to check it all up and make sure everything's going okay. Lastly, I text a lot. I like Noah said, I rarely make phone calls. The last phone call I don't is lasts like 2 seconds. When I get a phone call, it's like, "Hey, where you at?" and that's the end of it. So yeah, my major communications through text messaging and social media now.
That's completely fair, and that makes a lot of sense too. I have I have younger brothers who are closer to your ages, and they definitely use Snapchat all the time to communicate, and it's incredible. So this is just a question from what you guys have just said. How have you seen in the last few years of you using your cell phones that change? Has the platform always really been Snapchat for you since you started using social media, or have you seen it shift from Facebook or from Twitter more to Snapchat, or do you use Instagram? How have you
It's
seen
definitely
the
shifting.
trends shift
Even
into
from when
what you use
Snapchat was
now?
first released about when I was in like eighth grade, so about 4 or 5 years ago. Um, Snapchat, we all thought was a joke. It wasn't going to last long at all. And now it is the number one platform that we're all using. And to answer Shane's question here, I see her if she asked if Facebook kind of falling off the map for people our age. And the answer to that, from my perspective, is yes. Um, Not many people even here in my high school check their Facebook regularly anymore. I know we have a class page here at GCHS that we post information to, and it just notifies people, and that's sometimes the only time people here will get on their Facebook. The number one platforms, I should say, rather, for people our age definitely is Instagram and Snapchat are the two top used all the time. Those are the ones I check the most often, and Twitter, mainly because Twitter is faster and seems to be more accurate than Facebook at times. So the answer is yeah, Facebook is slowly, in my opinion, losing ground. Other than its messaging platform, it's losing ground with people our age.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I would agree
How
that
about you,
Facebook is
Kennedy?
totally, as I refer to it, the old people, the old people social media. But um, it is still very important because that's how I connect with like people outside of my community because my community is actually filled with people over the age of 50. I think that's what takes up most of the population. So that's how my FBLA chapter uses to connect to those people outside our community. So yes, Facebook is falling, but in the youth standpoint, so it's totally big with the with the older folks. But what I see being used mostly for us, the youth, would be like Instagram and Snapchat. That's that's all I've ever seen actually, is Instagram and Snapchat, and how big that is around here is crazy.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, no, I've definitely seen that trend among my friends as well, and it's Instagram now has Instagram stories, which allow people to do a similar function as Snapchat does, so that you can kind of share what's going on in your day, and they have all the filters to make it fun too. So I've definitely seen more people using the Instagram stories, but Snapchat is still a really big function. So based on that, though, for you guys, obviously advertising has become a part of Instagram and Snapchat now too. If you were to talk to your local telco about using social media more effectively among rural youth, would you suggest that they create an Instagram account and post interesting things about your community? What would your advice be to your local telco to help engage young people using Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter perhaps as the top three young, if you will, platforms? What would your advice be to your local telcos on how to message but not over message,
My
and how to
advice
get
would
started on
be
that?
for them to use platforms that we're using most, like Snapchat and Instagram. Snapchat has a very well formatted advertising platform that they use to directly reach targeted audiences and age groups in certain areas, so they can create ads for different age groups and it'll reach different age groups. I saw it happen during the election last year. I would see different ads than my mom would on her Snapchat account, crazy enough. I mean, it does it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So the easiest way to access and spread information to people our age is advertising via Snapchat and Instagram. That is what we see the most of. I know some rural telcos out here are running ads on Pandora. The other day, I heard one. My advice would be is to steer clear and get on Snapchat and Instagram and use those. As I noticed Pioneer has advertised on Instagram. I've seen their ads come across my feed because I live in the area. But that is the number one way to reach us. And for example, making those personalized to what we do. I know a lot of universities using Kansas State University has created its own Snapchat and it posts things from the inside the university from a student's perspective. So making those Snapchats and stories geared towards our age group, really getting someone on your staff that knows what our age group is looking for can really help. Because I notice when businesses do have Snapchats and campaigns have Snapchats, that's something people in our age group especially pay attention to. We slide up on the links and we click on them, sometimes on accident, but sometimes it can lead to something big.
Very cool.
Just answering, I see Jack asked what we would find interesting as a post. For me, I don't like long videos. So if I see a video that's like 45 seconds, like the max, I'm not going to watch it because it's probably just wasting my time. But like the short videos that show something flashy and really cool and colorful, I'll watch those anytime. And with really cool music behind it. So that's kind of what I guess I would be looking for in an Instagram post. But just keep it short and simple. Just, that's how I would say it. But definitely Instagram's the go-to if you want to connect to people connect to the youth. Instagram is definitely the way to go.
Very neat. Well, thank you guys for your insight. That's super helpful. And another question that came in is, are you both using video streaming? And I'm guessing that's meaning in a number of ways. Is it meaning from Netflix to YouTube? How do you guys watch video content? I mean, is it Instagram? Because I know Instagram also has video streaming, but it's obviously short videos. How do you guys day in and day out kind of consume video content
Personally,
or
for
television
me, here in the
shows?
Tribune, we have one cable provider, and that's Pioneer. That's who my family gets their cable TV from, and we're able to get a cable package from them. I know a lot of families out here are turning away and dropping their cable and their dish and direct subscriptions, and they're turning directly to getting an internet service based, like getting a Roku or Apple TV to stream internet. And people my group and what I use mostly to stream internet, even at my house in my room, is I use Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube, and even on my phone, anywhere. And Netflix is the big ticket one. Even though they're going to raise their rates, people are going to stick with them, no matter what. Hulu is another big one because the day after the show airs on a network, it'll end up on Hulu. And I've noticed a lot of increasing number of people here, especially in Greeley County, are dropping cable, dropping dish, dropping direct, and getting Apple TVs and Rokus, and are buying the CBS All Access apps and getting the ABC apps, and they're just watching their local affiliates and getting all of their TV shows directly over the internet rather than having cable.
How about you,
I watch
Kennedy?
Netflix all the time. I always am on my computer listening to music, so YouTube's a big one too. I guess that's I'm not a big TV watcher, but when I do watch, I watch a couple episodes of The Office on Netflix, or that's about it. That's all the video streaming I really do.
That's entirely fair. Well, another question that's come in, and thank you guys for those answers. That was great and super helpful. So, do you find that that youth still are following hashtags or using hashtags, and if so, are they relevant anymore to find a lot of
It
information about a
depends.
particular topic?
Sometimes I think people use hashtags as a joke, I guess. I personally don't really ever click on them to see what's ever been put on the feed. Um, in fact, I never really think I ever have. I just use them. There are some people that may click on them. As for getting to youth to click on it, I mean, we'll use them. People put incentives behind them. For example, I know the Kansas FFA Association uses them, and when we put hashtag KSFFA sometimes they'll do these videos and they'll take those pictures we use in those videos and they'll put them on other videos they use. I know the Corn Growers of Kansas uses hashtag Here by the Corn, and if you submit a picture of you doing something involving corns, ethanol, anything that involves corn, could be a picture with a tortilla. you'll submit that with their hashtag, and they will choose a winner from those pictures and send them a Yeti cup or something. That's about the only time we use hashtags from my perspective, that there's some driving incentive behind it. Uh, Other than finding information, not really. I never really go on Twitter and type in hashtags and look at the feed. Sometimes I look at the Kansas legislators' hashtag feed and look through there, but other than that, not so much to find information.
Interesting. Very neat. Thanks.
I
How
would
about you, Kennedy?
actually disagree with Noah. I use hashtags to find things or information that I need, especially after a football game. The CD Twitter uses hashtag IA football, and as soon as that next morning, the Saturday after the game on Friday, I'm on there and I'm like, okay, where's my hashtag so I can see all the feed and the pictures from the game the night before. I know the FBLA uses hashtag value added, which is a new thing we've adopted, and that when I need to see like what's been posted on Twitter, I click on that hashtag and I see what's all been going through, and I think they're very helpful and they're catchy. So I think are a great way to get people to click. But I know there's people like Noah who or that don't use them. And so it's just kind of a 50-50 thing. You get people who like them and you get people who don't.
And yeah, and to add what Kennedy said there, it actually, I guess she's right. I mean, you can click on them and build off of them. I know sometimes we'll tweet things to different things, and followers you don't have will go in there and look and like it and retweet it. And that may be something you'd be able to do for advertising, but it would have to be a hashtag that everyone generally uses and everyone knows about. So if you just insert a random hashtag in there that's not
Yeah.
being used or no one knows about, unless someone goes in there and clicks on it, you're not going to see it. And that was a great point, Kennedy.
And I would like to also add,
That's very interesting.
there's a thing called over hashtagging. So if you are going to advertise with hashtags, just please keep it to a minimum because I know when I see people who have like a paragraph full of hashtags, I'm not gonna click on it because it's just you're trying too hard.
Yeah, it's like the bloggers who do that, right? Hashtag beauty blogger, hashtag travel, hashtag yeah, I could see it being overdone for sure. And so I don't know, I think Kennedy on the same note, when it comes to events maybe and consistent things. I know I'm probably 15 or plus years older than you guys, but I have friends who get married and they all do a hashtag so that everything from the wedding collects into one space. And so similar to the youth tour, if people post using our youth tour hashtag, everything like the pictures and the comments post to one place. So they can be helpful in that sense. But when it comes to advertising, like you're saying, it's almost like you need to come up with one hashtag and stick to it and have people consistently use that for it to develop almost like brand recognition.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, very cool. So another question that's come in from the audience is then when it comes to choosing your internet service provider, did your parents ask for your input? Did they when they're talking about maybe your local internet company, do they talk about it with you guys, or do they talk about the delivery methods like cable or fiber to you guys?
Yeah, I've had a lot of discussion with my parents actually about providers here in the Greeley County area. Currently, we get our cable from Pioneer, and our internet comes from Wheatland Broadband. And one discussion I've been having with them is, is it still functionable for what we're doing and how much we're streaming over the internet? It doesn't really provide enough service for us. Do we want to switch? And I mean, we have this discussion about a lot, and I've actually had a discussion with some teachers here. They ask me what provider we think is the best, or and I know, and especially in like Kennedy's case, there are some areas even here in Kansas where there may only be one provider or two providers, so people are limited. Um, when we talk about delivery method, I just know about that because it's something I know about. Not a lot of people generally hear. In fact, I was having this discussion with some kids in my sociology class, second hour. A lot of them don't even know the difference between direct line, like fiber and coaxial, and things coming in on a physical line to your house, and some of them don't know the difference of satellite and broadband, where satellite you have a receiver on top of your house and broadband you have a receiver. A lot of people our age just don't know about that. To answer that question, yes, we know who the providers are, and sometimes they are the best. Just depends on the person. And my parents have asked me. I don't know about much about anyone else.
My parents did not ask me, but we really only had one option. So I just figured it was none of my business, and it was what my parents wanted, which is usually how it goes in my house. But yeah, we only have one office that we can go through, and that's GRM, and they are my Wi-Fi and my phone and my television. They're everything. So, and as far as I didn't know anything about like broadband or anything before I went on the youth tour, so it was a great learning experience for that, and it totally opened up a whole new world. So now I can talk to my parents about it, whether or not they care about my opinion.
Oh, that's very neat. Well, I appreciate both of you guys saying that because it does. It's something that not everyone thinks about. I think we kind of talked about on the youth tour how there's a lot of consumers who think of their telecommunications as a bit of magic, right? Like it just comes, you pay for it and it's magical and it just shows up. And a lot of people, especially in cities, don't even have to think about it because they've got several providers to choose from. There are competitive rates, and you look at rural providers and they're often working as hard as they can to get the best rate possible. But it's definitely different, and it's interesting having to think about where our telecommunications come from because we're so used to having it in everything today, right? Especially to have access to Snapchat and to do our texting and connecting with friends. So,
Heck yes.
next question, a follow-up
I don't
question
think there's
is, do
a
you
day
ever
that goes
request that your
by I
parents
don't
increase
ask,
your internet speed?
can we increase our internet speed? And I think right now with our provider, we're at like the maximum limit for the wireless broadband. Because I've noticed from my perspective, as we've began streaming more and more, and especially before my sister graduated high school, and there's two of us in the house trying to use 3 Netflix accounts at one time, it really wasn't working. So yes, I ask all the time, can we get faster internet? Can we get faster internet? Even here at our school, a couple years ago, a bunch of students came together and we went to the school board and got faster internet. I mean, that is a question people my age ask a lot: is how fast is this going to be? And I noticed even when I was looking for colleges, the information sheets they would send out. I got a letter from a university, and one of their perks things they put about living on campus was that they had like the fastest internet speed in their dorms in that state. So that is something that I definitely care about, and that is something that I ask about all the time, trying to get fixed. So internet speeds is definitely a big thing,
Wow.
concern for me and for other people I've talked to my age.
Thanks, Noah. How about you, Kennedy?
I don't think I've ever asked, but I've definitely complained. um, like I said, we don't really have much to choose from down here, so what I get is what I get. And I think we're, like what Noah said, I think we're at the max of speed at all through GRM. So it's the fastest it gets right now until the technology advances. So,
Yeah. Well, it's a big question, I think, for a lot of folks too. And I know we've worked with some schools and libraries, and when we're talking to regulators, it's a question oftentimes from a school's perspective. A lot of folks are saying schools need more internet, but is it that they don't have the access to it, or they can't afford it? And so it's a big question of affordability versus accessibility, I think, for a lot of folks too. So interesting saying that you guys are both at your maximum point, because that's pretty cool. It goes to show how much people are using the bandwidth and how the need is definitely out there for consumers in rural areas. And that kind of on that note, do you guys, so going between home and school and work and your extracurriculars, do you have Wi-Fi hotspots in town that you see people use? Are there public Wi-Fi spots? I know a lot of folks use libraries. Sometimes there's McDonald's. And so if you
There are
have the Wi-Fi
Wi-Fi
hotspots,
hotspots
if
here in
so, do you
Tribune.
use them?
We're
Where
pretty
are
blessed
they?
to
If you
have
don't
a
use them, do
really
your
nice
friends use them?
library due to some community members. Our library does have a Wi-Fi hotspot through Wheatland Broadband, and our hospital, Greeley County Health Services, does have public internet for people inside the hospital. As for that, those are about the only two spots in the community that have public internet access in Greeley County alone, because there's only one town, pretty much, Tribune, and I guess you can count Horace if you want to. But there's only two spots to get public Wi-Fi, and I mean, if you happen to be near the downtown hospital office, you might get it. But I see people using them. The people that do Bike Across America will stop and use those Wi-Fi hotspots to connect on their phones. Harvesters I see parked out in front of the library, they use the Wi-Fi hotspot. As for people that live here in Tribune, I don't even know if they know we have it. There is a sign out front that says we do, but I think most people here have it in their homes, or if you're a student here at USD 200, you have access to it via your school district laptop. We are a one-on-one school district, but other than that, those are the only two spots, and if you don't know about them, I don't see much of the public using them other than people from out of town.
Okay. Thanks, Noah. How about you,
So
Kennedy?
in Leon, we have barely any businesses that provide Wi-Fi, but the library does. And I know GRM actually set up a hotspot that covers a majority of the town. So wherever you're at, you could usually connect to the GRM Wi-Fi. But it's really slow because you have people connected on it constantly. So it's really used, but it's not very efficient because of the amount of people who are on it.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I know Wi-Fi hotspots are different for different communities and are in different areas. And we hear stories all the time of students not necessarily having broadband at home, so trying to then connect at a local library, but sometimes the library's hours close early, and then they're stuck without internet access. So sometimes students find themselves going to a McDonald's parking lot, if they have a McDonald's locally, to get their homework done. And so it sounds like you guys both have pretty good broadband at home to be able to get your homework done, and to, as they call it, the homework gap, to be able to address that. So that's very cool. Well, thank you guys. And so another question came in. Do you think that youth understand the actual speeds that we talk about, like 60 megabits per second, or is it better to simply advertise the benefits of faster speeds, such as being able to power multiple users and devices when you're talking about advertising?
Done the specific things like me and maybe Kennedy know, just from our experience and what we've done. They don't know the difference between 60 and 120 and those types of things. And 25 and 50 rather. But I think when advertising, it's better to put this package can stream video, you can play games, stream video, listen to music, and stream all these things at once. It's perfect for that. Or this package is just great for getting on the internet. A lot of people, there's very few and far in between, especially here in my high school, that understand the difference between 20, 50, 60, 120.
Thanks, Noah.
I agree with Noah 100%. Yeah, I don't think there's really anybody other than the two of us who went on the youth tour that really understand the factors that go into it or whatever. But he took the words right out of my mouth. It's better to package it and show like what this speed can do versus what this speed can do. So, yeah, Noah hit the nail right on the head.
Awesome. Well, that's super insightful, guys, and I appreciate that too. And even if you do learn about it in some context, sometimes it's just more helpful to understand, what does that mean in terms of my streaming capabilities or what have you, having the actual context to understand rather than the numbers from a consumer's perspective. So that's great to hear from you guys. Thank you. So since this is a webcast on telecom, can you each just take us through your day from the moment you wake up, from when you go to bed, on how you use telecom and technology and when? When you wake up from to when you go to bed. You can make it as detailed
Each
or
day,
as
I'm
not
in
as you'd
cross
like
country,
to.
so my
So go
morning
ahead,
starts out a
Noah.
little early. I start practice, so I have to wake up at about 5:40 every morning here in Tribune. So first thing when I'm up, my phone is my alarm. That's what I use as my alarm. It goes off, and immediately I get on and check Snapchat, check Twitter, scroll through Facebook, which is about the only time I scroll through Facebook is once in the morning and then maybe once before I go to bed. That I immediately start responding to Snapchats and tweets and stuff first thing in the morning. From there, I don't know from Kennedy's perspective, but I know a lot of students in Kansas are exactly like me. We're not allowed to use our phones during the class time. So from a period about 8 to 11, not on the phone. I don't have access to it. From like 11 to 11:45 maybe if there's enough service in the lunchroom. And then again, when I get out of class at 4 o'clock, I'm back on the phone, using it at least every 40 minutes, talking to people from friends across the state. It's pretty much a nonstop effort once you get access to it on a daily basis. But yeah, my day starts with looking at my phone, and my day pretty much ends with looking at Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yep, that sounds about right. How about you,
Um,
Kennedy?
when I wake up at 6:30 every morning, I get on my phone and I check my Facebook and Twitter. Um, it's just a force of habit. I don't even know why I do it actually. Um, but I know we are actually allowed to use our phones throughout the school day. Just because during like mass communications class, we take photos off of our phone and upload it into the yearbook program. And our phones are seen as a tool at our school, and that's how they're used. So I'm on my phone constantly. I think my phone's probably almost dead actually by how much I'm already on it, and it's only 2 o'clock over here. So
That's super insightful. So for Noah, I guess my question would be, how do they take your actual phones away, and do you find you're more productive when you don't have your phone? And I'd say the same for Kennedy. When you
The
when you have your
idea
phone, do you feel like you
behind
can
that,
still be productive, or is it more of a
from what I've been
distraction?
told, it is a safety issue that we don't have our phones. We are allowed to have them on our bodies. They just have to be silenced, and we can't use them unless we're told otherwise to use them. And a part of our handbook policies that we sign and agree to says that they can confiscate the device if it's out when you're not instructed to have it. Um, Personally, from my perspective, I see it as a disadvantage. There are a lot of great things that we can do educationally from our cell phones. I know there are a lot of great educational things. We're not allowed to connect our phones to the internet here at the school either. There is no public access to the school district unless you have permission. Um, that we call that the closest guard secret at GCHS is our internet password. But I see it as a disadvantage not being able to use them. I am the Southwest District FFA president, so I do all the communication stuff, and that's all done from our phone because we're not allowed to use Facebook, Twitter from our school district laptops. So I would see being able to use your phone as a extreme educational advantage from a picture taking standpoint, from communications, from just all the educational things you can learn from a phone, programming. There's a lot of great things you can do through a cell phone if it's being done properly. So I see it as an advantage if a school district is letting kids use their phones and is encouraging them to use them in a proper way. So when they get out in the real world, they know what they're doing.
I agree with Noah 100%. Actually, I am taking a course right now where we're doing app programming. And if you have an Android phone, the MIT App Inventor can be downloaded onto your phone, and you can see the app that you're creating on your laptop being transferred to your phone. So I think that cell phones are a great way to like show kids, this is what you're going to be living with out in the real world, so why not use it now? And that's the whole point of education, is to prepare you for what you're going to your next step in life, preparing you for your next step in life. So why not let the students use what they're going to be using when they're out of high school, when they're in high school? So just cell phones are a big part of life, and our education system over here just knows that that's how we live and that's what they're going to use. So why not just let them use it, but in a proper way?
That's very interesting from both your perspectives. It's cool to see how they've been integrated into education and technology, but also the awareness of the other sides of having technology, the dark side of technology in some ways, if you will. So we only have a few minutes left, and you guys have been so incredible to be participating in this webcast. But my last question would be, you guys are both obviously very involved in various activities and working and in your schools. So what are your plans after high school? And if you're leaving town, do you plan on staying connected in rural America, or you plan on coming back, or do you not know yet? I think any insight into your future plans
Upon
and why would be
graduation
great.
in
So
May
go ahead,
of
Noah.
next year, I'll be graduating from Greeley County and going to Kansas State University to study agriculture, economics, and political science. Um, I currently don't have any plans to return to the Greeley County area or western Kansas. I don't have any right now. But I know from my perspective living here, having access to internet, good quality internet service, is a huge factor to retaining people out here. It's a huge factor when it comes to healthcare. It's a huge factor when it comes to what I do in the agriculture industry. Um, right now, I want to work in the government, so I don't have any plans to come back to Tribune. There's really no government forums here. But again, just the access to internet is essential to retaining people to Western Kansas. Having internet in all 105 counties in Kansas is an amazing thing. Having more than one provider here in the least populated county in the entire state of Kansas is amazing. That's something we're happy to have here, and without that, I don't think we would have the capabilities we have. We have a school district with each student has a MacBook. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things I do right now. This computer I'm talking over isn't even hardwired into the internet. Our wireless connection is decent enough. I can do that. But yeah, just access to internet is essential to getting people to coming back to rural areas.
Thanks, Noah. How about you, Kennedy?
So when I graduate this year, I plan on going to Kirkwood Community College up in northern Iowa and getting my liberal arts degree, then transferring to Northwest Missouri State and going into secondary education. And I plan on teaching history and government to high school students. I don't really have an interest in coming back. Just there's nothing here other than the people that I love. There's no ambition for me to stay. Um, I what we refer to Decatur County as is the bubble. Once you're here and you graduate, if you don't leave, you're never gonna leave, and that's true. I look at all the people in my county, and they didn't go to off to college, and they're still here. So yep, I just see college is a very big opportunity for me to leave, create something of myself, and then once I've done that, after maybe retirement, I'll come back and give back to the community that raised me.
Well, we so are appreciative of your time and your insight, guys. You have just been absolutely wonderful as you were on the youth tour. You are two extremely bright, wonderful students, and just want to say we wish you the best of luck. Thank everyone also for tuning in today. I know Kennedy and Noah took time out of their school day to be a part of this, so thank you everyone for listening.